All right, welcome everybody. My name is Betsy. I'm the executive director of the Chaffey County Community Foundation, and this is an orientation to introduce our Phase 2 food access grants. So just a little background on CCCF's grant making. Our grant making is typically done through grant making partners. And so we work with a lot of different businesses and governments, agencies, as well as fund holders that want to make an impact in the community. And so following along with that, this fund that is making available the food access grants is through a partnership with City of Salida funds, individual donors who gave for food access, um, Chaffey County funds, the Colorado Trust, El Pomar Foundation, and CHAFA all contributed to make this grant opportunity possible. So a big thank you to them for partnering with us to have an impact on food access sustainability within Chaffey County. The purpose of this orientation is to give everyone a sense of the goals of the grant making program, understand the eligibility criteria, and some nuts and bolts on how to apply and how the portal works if you haven't yet worked with it. The food access work that we started in Chaffey County really began almost really a year ago in early March when some funding considerations went a little topsy-turvy with federal landscape. And so we brought together a group of leaders working in the immediate needs space. And these organizations all were some grassroots, some faith-based, some government, some nonprofit, really just also some community advocates all came together and we worked to assess the needs in the community while federal funding wasn't as guaranteed as it had been before. For where that funding came into the community and how to make sure that while we can't replace federal dollars dollar for dollar, how we can preserve basic immediate needs access. Last fall with pausing and SNAP benefits and also just tracking the trends of that there was an increased number of people showing up at food pantries, increased need communicated in the community. We did a food access planning session that was attended by a number of different partners, stakeholders from different sectors, which eventually culminated in the food access roadmap. And this is listed on our website for your reference. And I do want to put a link in the chat. The food access roadmap really guided through what we could do as an immediate response in the current, at that point, crisis of the pause and SNAP benefits, but then also recognizing that it was not just the SNAP benefit crisis, even when that was resolved, there was a continued need for food access support. And so last November, we were able to push out $50,000 in grants for stopgap measures to make sure people had food access during the Q4 of 2025. We also did a call to action out to the community to generate funds for food access and had just a remarkable response, not just from local donors, but also from the partners that I mentioned previously. And so that has created the opportunity for this next phase of grant making, which is really focusing on those phase 2 and 3 in the food access of those steps that are going to build the sustainability of our food access network, making us less dependent on outside funding, outside entities, food banks located on the Front Range, whose their own funding is going to influence what can be brought into our community. Really just acknowledging that we need to be more self-sufficient as a county in maintaining food access for residents and those who get their food from Chaffey County outlets. And we do want to recognize that many of our partners that offer food access are serving a broader geographic region than just Chaffey County. Clearly, the food network is not geographically bound just by county lines. However, as most of the dollars given were given specifically due to the Chaffey County geographic basis, we are looking for programs that have a heavy influence specifically on Chaffey County. And so going forward in this grant opportunity, the goals are really sustainable solutions for food access expansion. This is not a grant opportunity to maintain programs, to just continue what's always been done. We're really looking for some innovation and some solutions here that are going to increase the sustainability of food access in Chaffey County. Where that can take many forms, and we're not overly prescriptive on that. It might be a leadership investment, knowing that organizing work is a human capital investment in many ways. It might be a resource investment. Maybe it's food node, cold storage. Maybe it's another infrastructure piece that's going to be able to expand the way that folks can access food, or ways that we can preserve food that is grown in Chaffey County to go to, or in the surrounding areas, to Chaffey County residents, specifically that are experiencing hunger. Funding amounts. So we are looking for, a little bit, I guess, for our range, anyways, of what we typically award as slightly higher range. And we're looking at between 5,000 to 100,000 in grant funding opportunities. That's sort of the floor and ceiling we're expecting. Um, and we do expect the awards to be along that range. So there may be a handful at that lower level and then maybe one at that higher level, but most of them probably following within that around that $50,000 range. And then these are restricted grants. So just a note for those thinking about applying for grants. So these are not operating grants. They are restricted grants specifically for the projects that are going to increase the sustainability of our food access network. And so you would be expected to track the expenses against the project, and you are expected to be committed to those project goals that you define in the application. Anna will get into the process a little bit later, but as we all know, when you write an application, oftentimes you're not funded at the full amount you requested, and so there will be an opportunity for you to revise the program outcomes that you're committing to and the deliverables based on the amount that you are awarded. And then one other thing is these, as with most of the grants that the Community Foundation puts out, these are going to be reviewed by a volunteer group of community members that have a connection to the community, to food access, and to the Community Foundation. And so that's how the decisions will be made. Very rarely does the staff at the Community Foundation get to make any grant award decisions. But that does make us available to answer questions, offer advice on crafting your proposal. That being said, once the application opportunity is open, because we are not able to provide the same level of advice to every single applicant, if you have questions or if you want to connect with us, we request that you do that before the actual application opens in early April. All right. Anna, do you want to take over the eligibility criteria?
If it'll let me unmute, I would love to. Hi, everyone. So Anna Hendricks, so I'm the program director here with Chaffey County Community Foundation. And so I linked in the chat the direct landing page for the grant process. So this is going to kind of outline all of the review process, timeline, as well as eligibility. So I'll kind of briefly hit on the eligibility, and then I'm going to screen share the grant portal so that you get an opportunity and just walk through the grant application, especially for folks that are new, utilizing our grant portal, and for this grant in particular. So eligible applicants. So they must be registered nonprofits. So that could be 501c3, C4, C6. Government agencies are eligible as long as it is a broad community program that is meeting the grant objectives, as well as faith-based organizations, tribal entities, and organizations that are fiscally sponsored through another nonprofit. And so there's opportunities to select those in the grant portal. You also, and sorry, Betsy, if you had already said that, but we're really looking for the demonstrated capacity to implement this within 18 months. So we're not looking at those like long-term projects that are going to go for 5 years. So really falling within that timeline. Some might be, sooner than that, and that's okay. I mean, maybe it's a large, infrastructure purchase that's going to be implemented within 6 months, but looking for within that 18-month timeframe. And I think Betsy did a great job of outlining the roadmap. So with that being said, I am going to share my screen. I hope, and just walk you through the grant portal. for folks that have not been in our grant portal before, you can create your online, like you can create your profile and create your organization profile prior to the grant opening. You're welcome to do that at any time. So that way, when the grant opens, you're also able to access on our landing page the application questions as well as the scoring rubric, because we really want organizations to see not only what they're going to be asked so you can start planning ahead of time, but also how applications will be assessed by that volunteer grant review committee as well. Close this. Can you all see my screen? It should say CCCF test.
It's not quite there yet, but I think it's loading.
Tells me I'm screen sharing.
There you go.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so this is what your homepage looks like. So when you log into the grant portal, this is the page it's going to default to. And right now I don't have anything on my dashboard. If you have an organization and you have applied for a lot of grants, this is going to be much more active. It's going to show all the grants your organizations or that you've ever applied for, any outstanding actions. So if you're curious, like, do we have outstanding grant reports? It's going to come in on this left-hand column of assigned to you so that you'll know, you'll see there's like an exclamation point. I'm pretty sure if your grant, you have anything overdue. You can always reach out to us as well if you're not sure where your organization is, because we do require that all prior grant reporting is up to date prior to awarding any new funds. And you'll see some historic and closed grants. Like I can kind of expand this area. Maybe it won't let me. There you go. So these are a lot of the tests that I've run in the past. You'll see that for some organizations as well. What you're going to want to do is go up to this apply button on the top. It's going to show you all of our open and available applications. Right now, since this is not doesn't open, applications don't open until April 1st, I had to just put a quick password protection on it so that I could access it for this. That'll go away. You'll be able to see it essentially anytime that you come in. Right now, it's saying that we are allowed to apply. It would normally just let you preview at this point. If you click preview, that's going to download a PDF of the full application. So just another way to get to that page. But I'm going to go ahead and click apply, and it's going to pull me up to the grant application. You can also download the question list. It's another way to have the questions readily available. Name, you should have a name that is, sometimes with our more operating funds, it's okay that you kind of rename it with your organization. It should have a name that's specific to the project that you're looking to build with this. And this drop down is going to be where you're selecting your tax exempt status. And it's important that you select the correct one right off the bat, because there's some branching questions depending on, like, 501c3s have different forms they need to upload. So I'm going to click that we are a 501c3. And these questions, if you've received a grant from CCCF in the past, in your banking information is also going to pop up a separate set of questions for your ACH and how, if awarded funds, your organization wants to receive those funds. We highly recommend enrolling in automatic fund transfer and ACH, because you will get the funds a lot faster. If we're issuing checks, just be prepared that once everything's approved, it may take 2 to 3 weeks until you receive that check to get your project started. So I will say I've received a grant and my banking information's changed. Gonna have some uploads. W-9, this needs to be signed and dated for your organization within the past 3 years, because that helps to confirm with us the entity that is receiving the funds, EIN number. Your fiscal sponsorship. So if you are a project underneath the fiscal sponsorship of another organization, you want to make sure that you're uploading your agreement. You should have some kind of formal agreement in place, and that helps us to understand kind of the nature of that agreement as well with your fiscal sponsorship, because you'll be utilizing, some of their information in order to be eligible for funds. The first 2 financial documents are going to be your broader organization documents. So a profit and loss statement is from your last completed fiscal year. For a lot of organizations, that's going to be your calendar year, but not always. There are organizations that maybe they align with the school year, and so they're a June to what would that be? June to May fiscal year. And so it should be the last, it should be that full 12 months of all of your revenue and expenses. And the net difference, because that's basically showing what happened last year. Where'd you spend your money? Where'd your money income come from? And where'd you spend your money as an organization? This is going to cover all of your operations. And then your balance sheet is basically a snapshot of your assets and liabilities at the end of that fiscal year as well. So it kind of paints the picture of your financial health from the last completed fiscal year. And the project budget's going to come a little bit lower. So that's kind of your plan for the funds that you were applying for. As we keep moving down, grant reporting, this is just an opportunity to, maybe you're a new staff member and you're not really sure where you're at with reporting. You're always welcome to reach out with us and say, hey, does X organization have any outstanding reports we can confirm for you? And you're just verifying that you've done due diligence, that you're up to date on all your reporting. Authorizing signature is the person, if awarded funds, who at your organization is authorized to sign your grant agreement. So maybe you're a program manager and it's going to be your executive director. You're welcome to complete the application. If you're under the fiscal sponsorship of another organization, this authorizing signature needs to be from your fiscal sponsor. So we ensure that the correct person who's authorized, because once awarded funds, the next step is to complete a grant agreement prior to us being able to issue funds to your organization. We have our non-discrimination statement that we encourage everyone to really read and ensure that they are abiding by and agree. Anyone who disagrees with that would not be eligible for funding. And then this is your opportunity for your amount requested, as Betsy had kind of mentioned, between the $5,000 to $100,000, and you'll have an opportunity to break it down below, but this is kind of your overall ask. As we walk through the application, this is the opportunity to really take the time to detail your project and your plan. One of the things I always like to say is this grant portal does not save. So you can work in the grant portal. That's okay. It's one strategy. Just please save your application as you go. I've definitely gotten panicked phone calls from people before internet crashes, something happens, and they were not saving, and there's literally nothing we can do on the back end. I always feel like a best practice. This has always been my strategy as I've written grants is I work offline in like a Word document. That way we can collaborate as an organization. And then once we're ready to submit, copy and paste everything in, and then we have a record of, of what we've been working on. It's not mandatory, just what I feel like is best practice. You're welcome to use it here, but please don't just plug away and forget to save, because I really hate to hear when that happens. So organization mission statement, I mean, that's really going to be, if you're a nonprofit, it's going to be your mission statement, kind of a broader sense. If you're maybe a government entity, it might be a little bit more focused on the overview of your program, public health or something like that, kind of what's your core mission. It's going to be short. And then this section, we're looking more for your grant management history, especially if you're looking at the higher end of grants. Is this the first time your organization has managed a grant of that size? Or do you have a lot of experience? What are some of the outcomes you've achieved? What are some of the staffing and financial management pieces that you have in place? And if you haven't managed a grant of this size, maybe this is the first time, this is the opportunity to explain, what infrastructure you have in place, what capacity you have in order to be able to successfully complete the outcomes that you've outlined in your project. As we scroll down, we've got a section just for the brief project description. This is kind of the high level. These are the core activities, who's going to benefit from them, an opportunity to showcase the geographic area served. As Betsy mentioned, I mean, it might reach a little bit farther outside of Chaffey County, but it really should be touching on how you're working and the focus areas within Chaffey County, and the specific gap it addresses and why it's timely and why it's needed now. As we get into the application a little bit more, the needs and evidence. And so this is really showcasing, this is taking that deeper dive into the whys. How is it aligning with the roadmap? There's a link here as well. You can look at phase 2 and phase 3 and examples of some of the data that you might pull in for the needs and evidence of why this is a really critical project and how it meets those objectives. And the project plan's the details. So the project plan is the key activities. How are they going to be carried out? What kind of staff you have in place? You know, if there's applicable community engagement that's in there. And if applicable, it might not be to all organizations or all projects, but the infrastructure and coordination. So if you were looking to buy specific infrastructure for cold storage technology, this is where you're adding in those details. You know, where's it going to be stored? What's the management plan? How are you going to schedule? Kind of all of those details. So we've kind of increased the character limit just to ensure that there's lots of space for you to include any of the details as it relates to that. Timeline, this is your just general timeline of where you're going to be when you plan on launching. How close is this project? Is this project 6 months? You know, you're not ready to start 6 months, or as soon as you get a check, you're ready to start. Is it going to take the full 18 months? So just that anticipation so we can kind of see how your progress would be. And then what are your outcomes? You know, at the end of this project, as you project it, what are going to be the tangible things that you're going to be reporting on? Pounds of food, you know, how many households, individuals reached, you know, the efficiency, all of those kind of measurable pieces at the end of this. And then your sustainability plan. So after this grant period, knowing that this is kind of a boost to create a long-term you know, food storage needs, how's it going to be sustained? Do you already have the staff in place? It integrates well into your organization. You've got other funding sources that can cover certain portions of it. You know, it's relatively low maintenance, but how's it go? How are we going to ensure that this initial investment will sustain long term and it doesn't just go away at the end of this grant period? And very lastly, your evaluation plan. So how are you tracking? What are some of your data collection tools? How are you ensuring that you're tracking some of those outcomes that you had, you know, outlined earlier in your plan, frequency of data collection, and how you kind of take that as feedback for your plan and you're improving your program and your project as you move forward. The very last piece at the bottom here is your project specific budget. So this should be all encompassing of the project, including all revenue and all expenses. So is this kind of the only pocket of funding? It's going to fund the whole thing. Do you have some internal funds that you're utilizing? Are there other grant funds that you are leveraging in order to make this project happen? And then a detailed expenses for outlining how the funds will be spent. And I think this is also particularly important as we look at, as Betsy mentioned, you know, if you're awarded partial funds, this is where you'll be able to go in and update potentially your budget. Maybe if you had hoped to add in a certain level of infrastructure, but given a smaller award amount, that might not be possible, but you're going to kind of keep some of these core functions. Be sure to include any in-kind contributions as well, any matching funds and in-kind contributions that make this project, that's going to make this project happen, as well as any of your administrative or indirect costs, if that's applicable to the project that you're putting forward. We add in this line, it's not mandatory, but budget notes is just an opportunity. Sometimes we upload numbers and feel like there's some context that might be helpful. Maybe your organization was in a deficit in the last fiscal year, but maybe you were awarded a multi-year grant, you know, from the year before that wasn't realized in your project. Or, you know, there are some other funds. You've got large savings because your organization is saving up for a capital campaign. It just offers a little bit if you need to offer clarity. And if you feel like your budgets are pretty straightforward, there's no need to add in any notes here. This is also an optional letters of support section. I would say if your project is really your organization is planning to purchase something, you know, and it's really going to be managed in-house, probably not applicable for you, but maybe this is a larger collaboration between multiple organizations that are going to utilize a certain infrastructure. This would be a great place to make sure that all of those, you know, really close partners that are invested in the program can upload their letter of support, like, yes, we are committed to this program, we support the funds going to X organization, you know, in order to make this a reality. So this isn't necessarily a place where you need to go out and kind of showcase support for people who don't have a direct impact, but it's really helping to strengthen any of the relationships and the collaborations that are critical to your project, just to show that those partners have the equal buy-in. And that is the bulk of the application. Down here is just some of the more specifics for nonprofit organizations in particular that I'll briefly touch on. So for nonprofit organizations, your tax letter is going to be your IRS letter of determination showing, your 501, potentially C3, C4, C6 status from when your organization first started. And then the second one here, I feel like is where we get more confusion than any other kind of requirement sometimes, which is the Secretary of State charitable registration. So when you register with the Secretary of State, it will show your business type as a nonprofit. In order to solicit funds, including grants and donations in the state of Colorado, you also need to register as a charitable organization. You upload your certificate here. Your certificate is going to have an expiration date. So you renew this every year. It's really, I think it's a $10 fee or so to keep on top of it. So there's a place, we have a link. You can search your organization if you're not sure. Some of organizations really good. They always have this on hand. And then there's also a link to some of the FAQs about the charitable registration. I imagine if your budget is below a certain threshold, you might be exempt. And so you can kind of read through some of those FAQs there as well. And then we've also added just a simple board of directors list. This doesn't need to be a biography of every of your board. It's just who is your current board in this fiscal year and what are their roles, and that would suffice. So you don't need to add in more detail than just the list of board. And then this just shows the direct deposit information. You can save as you go. If I type in, test here, and then I hit save, it's going to pull me up to a page that's going to show me everything I didn't do, which essentially in this application is everything. I think my connection is really slow. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's just with the review. But it tells you that it's been saved, and then it will let you go back in. And once you're ready to submit, you can click submit at the bottom. You'll get an email confirming that your application was submitted, and always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I think that's it for the grant portal.
Any questions on the grant portal before we move on? Okay. So next up we have key dates and timeline. And I can go ahead and share the page that lists out all this information. So I'll share my screen. So on our website under grant making, there's a link to food access grants, and then this page has all of the information on there. It's also linked in the chat. So you see the link to the food action roadmap, and then as you scroll down, you can see the key dates and deadlines. We will have a posting on here soon of this recording, and then the applications open April 1st and are closed Thursday, April 30th at 11:59 p.m. Technology loves a deadline, and so if you want to plan to submit at least a few days before that deadline, that is really helpful. It also gives us a chance to, if for whatever reason you upload the wrong thing, we can reach back out to you and get you a full application in by the deadline. Just notorious for internet to go down across the region and computers to die when there's a deadline on the coming up soon. April 30th through May 29th is when the applications will be reviewed and decisions will be made. And then early June, not April, we'll have to update that, is when grant award notifications will be issued. And please keep an eye out. The grant agreements are signed through the portal. So please keep an eye out for when you get that notification, and make sure if you are the person on the portal that you have a way to forward that to the person who needs to sign it so that can be signed. And then within 10 business days of getting a completed grant agreement is when the funds will be dispersed. As Anna mentioned, if you sign up for direct deposit, that process is a lot quicker. If it's a check that's mailed, it can take up to 2 weeks, depending on how fast your local mail is to get to you. Anna, anything other else on key dates and timelines to cover?
No, were you going to talk about reporting later, further down?
Yes. So the grant reports, we are going to have a mid-year report on project progress that will be submitted by December 31st, 2026. As we mentioned before, if your project is more of a short term, is going to be completed by then, you will have the option to submit either a mid-year report or a final report. And so if you're complete and you have everything to report, the funds have been spent and the deliverables have been met, you will be able to close out the grant at that point. If it's a longer project, the next reporting timeline is December 31st, 2027. And at that point, that is when you will have had to have spent the funds and met the deliverables, or we may have to reach out to return funds if, for whatever reason, you have not been able to achieve that. If you are ever in a situation where you think that you're hitting some roadblocks or some barriers and the project is not on track, please reach out to us proactively. We'd much rather work with you before the deadline comes and goes to help get the project back on track. Organizations with outstanding grant reports will not be considered for new funding until past reports are received. So this is sort of the big consequence that we offer when reports are not completed. So if you log into your portal and you have past due reports for other grant processes, please make sure that those are up to date before you go in and apply. And also, please be sure to stay on top of the reporting deadlines for this so that you can continue to be eligible for other grant opportunities that may pop up. Stop sharing. Let's see. So the next thing we wanted to touch on is allowable and unallowable costs. So just to reiterate, this is a restricted grant. That does mean that the costs that you propose in your budget is really what you're committing to in your grant award. And so hopefully you have internal structures set up to track those funds separately, to track costs against the funds, so that you don't get into sort of a reporting nightmare where you're trying to go back and backtrack on financial data to make sure that you are spending the funds appropriately. But that will be a component of the reporting process is were this fund spent in adherence to the budget that you submitted? Why or why not? And then as well as those deliverables. With restricted grants, ideally you are holding them in a separate class in your financial system or a separate fund so that you are able to really have a good sense of how much funds are left and how much you've tracked to report against the grant. If you or your organization has any concerns about how to set up that tracking, especially if maybe this is the first time you're going after a larger grant, we are happy to sit down with you and work with you. We have a lot of resources available just for nonprofit management, tools and resources, and that's something that CCCF is always happy to go over with you and connect with you at your organization. Um, So we've got monitoring and compliance. I think we pretty much touched on that. And Anna, anything else would you want to add before we get to the Q&A time?
No, I think that's it. I think that covers it.
So just for contact information, if you do want to reach out to us, both of our contact information is available on the website. The quickest way to get a response is to email grants@chaffeecommunity.org. That does go to both Anna and myself. And depending on who's locked in meetings all day or who's out of the office, that's the way that you will get your answer the quickest. But of course, you're always welcome to reach out to us personally as well. We do ask for a few business days to respond just because we do have a lot of programs and there are those days where we are fully locked into doing an all-day program. And so we cannot always respond immediately to requests that come in. All right. Any questions?
Not yet, but probably will have some in a few days.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel the same way as Hayatollah.
Hi.
Uh, I'm looking at the plan that y'all, the food action roadmap that you put together, and I definitely see how specifically the Valley Roots Food Hub can play a role in some of these actions, and they are already coming through Salida, and we have a one refrigeration unit in the area, but we understand it like maybe doesn't serve residents in the best way, and so we're potentially wanting to look into making that a more accessible and larger capacity option. And so that's kind of what's spinning, the wheels that are spinning in my head right now. Um, and I'll have to talk with the Food Hub general manager, Nick Purchase, about how this can fit into their expansion into a Pueblo location. But I definitely hear you on the focus of serving Chaffee County residents specifically. And we do have some farmers in the area as well. And so I definitely think like whatever we do right, or we would right, would have more of that like expanded focus. We just have those ripples out into the surrounding areas. And so I was glad to hear you address that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up too, is, we understand that the food shed is not limited by the county borders. I mean, there are obviously growers outside of the county that are connected to food access within the county. Additionally, many of the food pantries and access points are serving a much broader audience than just Chaffee County residents. I mean, we recognize that people who get their groceries and their food are not limited to the county borders as well. But that being said, we do want to have there be a strong connection to Chaffee residents, Chaffee access points to support that food network within this region specifically. So yeah, I think we're probably right on the same page, seeing eye to eye on that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I will put our contact information into the chat. That's really the best way to ask a grant related question, and then we'll kind of tag team on who gets back to you. But of course, always reach out. And if you want to just kind of talk through a concept or an idea, please reach out. We're going to be able to give you more feedback on that prior to April 1st when the application opens, just because we do need to be equitable on how we're giving feedback to all the applicants once that process is open. If it's a technical question, reach out to us at any time. It's a portal question or a, past reports question that you can reach out to us 100% of the time.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Okay, thanks. Bye.